Hey guys, what's going on? It's Alex from Fitment Industries, and you might be wondering, what is Rotary Forged and who is Rotary Forged? But most importantly, why is Rotary Forged?
Why is Gamora?
You guys have been dropping comments asking us to talk about it, so we figured that's exactly what we would do today on a Thursday evening. So let's just get right into it. It's a fancy term, right? So much so that there's been, well, a couple different companies that have actually tried to copyright and trademark the terminology itself. Rotary Forged has had a lot of history into what it does and why it's becoming so popular, especially in today's day and age. First off, let's take it back to just traditional casting. Ever since wheels have been a thing, casting has had a lot of different adjustments and evolutions to make the metal less porous and to essentially make wheels stronger over time. You've had basic sand casting, you've had traditional gravity casting, low pressure casting, and Durville die casting, and a bunch of other different ways people have made their wheels to try and improve it, either making it more cost effective, making it a better wheel, or just deciding to try something different to see if it would work. And you've had companies like Enki that have gone way off in doing their own specific casting treatment that they really don't want to tell others how they do it, and now it's kind of jumped into the Rotary Forge game as well. So if you are unfamiliar with what rotary forging is, what that essentially is in the basic terminology of it all is that when you're making a wheel, you have a mold, and then the metal will get poured into the mold or it gets injected in the mold, and that's the difference between gravity casting and low pressure casting as just a fundamental terminology. What ends up happening is that at the rim of the wheel, you have a big chunk of metal that's left behind. Usually in normal casting methods, when you're pressure casting, the injection mold will go all the way through the rim, and then it uses pressure to help maintain the molecular structure of the metal, cools it off, you're ready to roll. In gravity cast, it's usually just a mold that the metal will flow into until it's filled that entire empty space, which is essentially the wheel, and then it's cooled off, treated, and all that sort of good stuff. So what happens with rotary forging is you're left with the face that is still cast, but then a good chunk of metal is left around the outer rim. What happens is they take that, they put that on another machine, and they spin it at a high rate of speed. As well as the metal being already at an extremely high temperature, there are two rollers, or usually more than that, that will then attach to that machine and roll out the metal. Really, with a rotary forged wheel, it has a cast face, with the barrel itself being the same techniques and properties of a forged wheel. So there are two main reasons for rotary forged wheels. The first reason is obviously to save weight. Now, if you're looking at a cast wheel with a cast barrel, a lot of those 20 by 11s can weigh a pretty good amount. You're looking at around 35, sometimes even more than that, pounds per wheel. And if you put that on each corner, that's a lot of weight. So what rotary forging does is it eliminates that by just essentially creating a more streamlined approach with using less metal that is less porous because it has less air pockets, and overall you just get a lighter wheel. The second most important thing for rotary forging is that it increases the molecular grain structure of your barrel. Now with cast wheels, the metal is kind of all over the place, and the elements inside of that alloy can sometimes leave air pockets, it can leave imperfections at the molecular level. What happens with rotary forging is because of the rollers are spinning it at a high rate of speed, it's treating the metal very similar to as you would a dough, and you can align that dough the way that you want to. And when you align it correctly, which is what the rotary forging machine does, it increases the strength of the metal by just essentially putting it layer on top of layer, very similar to carbon fiber. Whereas when you're looking at a low pressure cast or even gravity cast, it's still kind of tossed and hodgepodged in there, and it's not going to have the same effects as a clean rotary forged wheel. Rotary forging is just a very simple way to increase the molecular grain structure of a wheel without necessarily adding a huge cost like having a forged wheel. When you have a forged wheel, you have a lot of the same properties of rotary forged, except the face of the wheel is also going to have the same almost molecular structure as the barrel of a rotary forged wheel. But there's a lot of things that go into rotary forging much above just the technique itself, because not all rotary forging is created equal. We've seen a lot of companies come out with rotary forging techniques and spin forged and flow form and compression forged and everything in between to put their own name on essentially the same technique. But every technique can be a little bit different, and if you're not looking carefully, you can run into a little bit of marketing skews that aren't necessarily true, but you're not going to be the wiser unless you have somebody on the inside telling you about some things to keep an eye out for if you're looking to buy rotary forged wheels. The first thing that you have to remember with rotary forged wheels is that there's going to be a lot of different names, and while there are varying techniques on how to get a rotary forged wheel, they are almost all essentially very similar techniques. You're not going to see a lot of companies that that are going to stray away from that style because most manufacturing plants overseas use almost the same exact machines as well everybody else. There's very few machines that are going to deviate from that process because it's a very well automated process that a lot of people don't have to worry about in terms of overhead. The second thing that you have to consider with rotary forged wheels is that it does not have to be a certain length of rotary forged on the barrel for it to be deemed rotary forged. Because there's not a whole lot of regulation behind the term of rotary forged and what it means and the requirements for you to deem it a rotary forged wheel, you can run into certain companies that will sometimes offer rotary forged wheels that aren't, well, that much lighter than their standard cast wheel. And the reason for that is because a lot of the times there will be companies that will not rotary forge out an entire barrel. They'll only do maybe 50% or even less if they have to, because it's going to save them money in the long run. And what you're going to happen with that is that you're not going to get the necessary properties of what makes a rotary forged wheel so awesome in your wheel. Some of the most iconic rotary forged wheels right now are obviously the TSWs. They coined it, they use it a lot in almost all of their wheels. Another great example is Rohana. Rohana's rotary forged wheel lineup on their RFX series is absolutely stellar. Koenig is another one shortly behind. And you're gonna have a lot of companies that are gonna be able to get the tech, whether they have a partner company or parent company that has a lot of money behind them. But just be careful that you're looking at the wheel weight of rotary forging, because if you notice that there's not a very big difference between the two, you might find out that rotary forging is really only a very small section of the barrel of your traditional cast wheel, and you're not going to get the same benefits as you would from a reputable company that's been in it for a long time. The current scene is going to larger wheels with wider widths. You're going to see a lot of people going into the 19 by 10s, 19 by 11s, 20 by 10s, 20 by 11s. There's very few people that are actually purchasing smaller wheels now versus the early 2000s, even into the 90s. It seems like the sport compact size of wheels is kind of going away, and as a result, you have a lot of these companies offer bigger, wider wheels to fit the wheel wells more appropriately for other cars. The problem with that is that when it goes back to wheel weight, if you're looking for a big wheel, it's going to be extremely heavy. Buying rotary forged allows you to get a nice wheel without necessarily having to sacrifice drivability, brake responsiveness, acceleration, or pretty much any sort of performance aspect, because rotary forging is almost always going to be a better option than your cast counterpart. You'd be surprised not to see rotary forged wheels become more popular in the next 2 to 3 years because of the technology that they provide and the fact that they're not super expensive. So if you're looking to pick up a set of rotary forged, or if you have questions, check out fitmentindustries.com or just drop a comment below. We'd be happy to answer you guys. Don't forget to check it out, wheels, tires, suspension, all that good stuff. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. But I'm Alex from Fitment Industries. Let us know what you'd like to talk about next week. Peace.